3. Disturbing True Stories. That happened this week. Story 1. The Neighbor Who Watched. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to check my locks 3 times before bed. But that was before last Tuesday. Before I found out what my neighbor had been doing for the past 6 months. My name's irrelevant to this story, but what happened to me could happen to anyone. I live in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio. The kind of place where people still wave at each other and kids ride bikes until the streetlights come on. I'm a 52-year-old divorcee, living alone in a modest 2-bedroom ranch. My neighbor, a man I'll call Derek, moved in next door last spring. Derek seemed normal enough. Mid-40s, polite, kept to himself mostly. We'd exchange pleasantries when getting the mail. He worked from home, something with computers, he said. I thought nothing of it. Last Tuesday morning, I was running late for work at the hospital where I've been a nurse for 20 years. I grabbed my coffee, rushed out the door, and realized I'd forgotten my badge. When I came back inside, I noticed something odd. My bedroom curtain was slightly open. I always close it completely. Always. A chill ran through me, but I dismissed it. Maybe I'd been careless the night before. That evening, I got home around 7. I made dinner, watched some television, got ready for bed. Around 10:30, I was brushing my teeth when I saw it. A faint red dot on my bathroom mirror. It moved slightly, then disappeared. My heart started pounding. I turned off the light and stood in the darkness, watching. After a minute, the red dot appeared again on the wall across from my window. It was coming from outside. I called the police immediately. 2 officers arrived within 15 minutes. I explained what I'd seen. They took it seriously, thank God. One officer went outside to investigate while the other stayed with me. 5 minutes later, the officer radioed back. They needed to see me outside. Derek's bedroom window directly faced mine, maybe 30 feet away. When the officers aimed their flashlights at his window, I saw it. A camera on a tripod, pointed directly at my house. The officers knocked on Derek's door. No answer. They knocked again, identified themselves. Finally, Derek opened the door, and I could see the panic on his face even from my front yard. The officers went inside. I waited, shaking, wrapped in a blanket one of them had given me. 20 minutes later, they came out and asked me to come to the station to give a statement. Derek was arrested on the spot. What they found in his house made me physically ill. Derek had cameras pointed at my bedroom, bathroom, and living room windows. He'd been recording me for 6 months, since the week he moved in. They found hundreds of hours of footage. Me changing clothes, me showering, me walking around in my pajamas, completely unaware. But it gets worse. The police found a folder on his computer labeled with my name. Inside were screenshots he'd taken, organized by date and activity. There were detailed notes about my schedule, when I left for work, when I came home, what time I went to bed. He knew everything about my routine. They also found evidence he'd been in my house. Twice, the forensics team determined, using a key he'd somehow copied. He had moved small things, taken pictures of my mail, my medication bottles, even my underwear drawer. The detective told me Derek had been building what they call a dossier. He was obsessing over me, learning everything he could. They found searches on his computer about how to disable alarm systems and the best times to approach someone in their home. "We think you called us just in time," the detective said. His search history from the past week suggests he was planning to escalate. I haven't been able to sleep in my own bedroom since. I'm staying with my sister 2 towns over. My house is on the market. I can't even drive down that street without feeling sick. Derek is in jail awaiting trial, but his lawyer is fighting to get him released on bail. The prosecutor says I'll probably have to testify, which means seeing him again, being in the same room with him. Every night, I think about all those months I lived my life completely unaware that someone was watching my every move. I think about how I'd stand at my bedroom window sometimes, looking out at the stars, feeling peaceful and alone. I was never alone. The worst part? Derek's landlord told the police this wasn't the first time. Derek had lived in 2 other neighborhoods before ours. Both times he'd been asked to leave quietly after women reported feeling uncomfortable around him. No charges were ever filed. No one warned us. I'm sharing this story because I need people to understand. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. Check your windows. Invest in curtains you can't see through. Look for strange lights or reflections. Don't assume you're safe just because you live in a nice neighborhood. I made that assumption, and now I'll never feel completely safe again. Story 2. The emergency call. I'm a 911 dispatcher in Portland, Maine. I've been doing this job for 12 years, and I thought I'd heard everything. Domestic disputes, overdoses, heart attacks, car accidents. You name it, I've taken the call. But what happened last Friday night will haunt me for the rest of my life. The call came in at 11:47 p.m. A woman's voice, barely above a whisper, said she needed help. She gave an address in a residential area near the waterfront. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. He's in the house. He's not supposed to be here. He's dead. I kept her on the line, my voice calm and steady, even though my hands were shaking. Ma'am, who's in the house? My husband, she whispered. But he died 3 weeks ago. I buried him. He's downstairs right now. I can hear him. My first thought was mental health crisis, possibly grief-induced psychosis. I'd handled calls like that before. I dispatched officers to the address and kept talking to her, trying to keep her calm. Can you describe what you're hearing? I asked. Footsteps, she said. He's walking around the kitchen. The floorboards creak in that specific spot near the sink. He always stood there when he did the dishes. And I can hear the refrigerator opening and closing. He's humming. That song he always hummed, Blue Moon. I could hear her breathing getting faster. She was working herself into a panic attack. What's your name? I asked. Margaret. Margaret Steiner. Please, you have to believe me. I'm not crazy. I know how this sounds, but he's here. My husband died of a heart attack on January 2nd. We had a funeral. I watched them lower his casket into the ground. The officers were 3 minutes out. I kept her talking. Margaret, I need you to stay where you are. Don't go downstairs. Officers are almost there. Then I heard it through the phone. Footsteps on stairs, creaking wood, getting closer. Margaret's breathing stopped. He's coming, upstairs, she whispered. Margaret, is there a lock on your bedroom door? Yes, but lock it now. I heard rustling, then a click, then silence. We waited together, listening. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Then a doorknob rattling. Margaret screamed. Officers are pulling up now, I told her. They're at your front door. I heard shouting, the officers identifying themselves, demanding entry. Then a crash, wood splintering, more shouting, then silence again. Margaret, I said. Margaret, are you there? An officer picked up the phone. This is Officer Reyes. We've secured the residence. Is she okay? What's going on? We need detectives here now, he said, and his voice had an edge I'd never heard before. And tell them to bring everything they've got. I wasn't supposed to know what happened after that. Dispatchers take the calls, send the help, move on to the next emergency. But Officer Reyes called me the next day on his personal cell. He said I deserved to know because I'd probably saved Margaret's life. There was a man in that house. He'd been living in the crawl space beneath the first floor for at least a week, possibly longer. He'd been coming out at night when Margaret was asleep, eating her food, using her bathroom. The officers found a sleeping bag, empty food containers, and a hole he'd made in the crawl space that led directly under the kitchen. But here's the thing that still gives me nightmares. The man they arrested was wearing Margaret's dead husband's clothes. A sweater, pants, even his shoes. He'd taken them from the donation bags Margaret had packed up, and he'd been studying the husband's habits somehow. They found a journal where he'd written notes about the family, details about their routines. The man claimed he was homeless and just looking for shelter. But the evidence suggested something far more sinister. He'd been watching the family for months before the husband died, learning their patterns. Security footage from a neighbor's camera showed him entering the house multiple times over several weeks. Margaret told the detectives that in the days before she called 911, she'd been noticing small things. Food disappearing faster than normal. The furniture slightly rearranged. A smell in the house she couldn't identify. She'd attributed it to grief. Thought she was losing her mind. The man is in custody now, undergoing psychiatric evaluation. They're trying to determine if he's done this before. Margaret has moved in with her daughter and is selling the house. Officer Reyes told me that if Margaret hadn't called when she did, they believe the man was planning to confront her directly. They found a knife from her kitchen hidden in the crawl space. I think about that call every single day. I think about how Margaret's instincts saved her life. How she trusted that something was wrong even when it seemed impossible. I think about how we go through life assuming we're safe in our own homes, never imagining that someone could be living beneath our feet, watching, waiting. Trust your gut. If something feels wrong in your house, call for help. Don't talk yourself out of it. Don't worry about looking foolish. Margaret almost didn't call because she thought people would think she was crazy. That hesitation could have cost her everything. Story 3. The hiking trail. I'm a park ranger at a state forest in northern Georgia. I've worked outdoors my entire adult life. 28 years now. I know these woods like I know my own backyard. I've handled lost hikers, medical emergencies, even a few black bear encounters. But what happened this past Sunday changed how I see these trails forever. A family came to the ranger station around 4 in the afternoon. Mom, Dad, 2 kids, ages 8 and 11. They'd been hiking the Blue Ridge Trail, a moderate 5-mile loop that's popular with families. They were supposed to complete it in about 3 hours, but they'd gotten turned around and ended up taking a wrong turn. That's when they found it. The father, a man named Tom from Atlanta, was visibly shaken. "There's something in the woods," he said. "About 2 miles north of the main trail. You need to see it." He showed me photos on his phone and my stomach dropped. Someone had built a camp deep in the forest, far from any marked trail. But this wasn't a typical homeless encampment or even a hunter's setup. It was elaborate. There were multiple tents arranged in a circle, all camouflaged with branches and leaves. In the center was a fire pit with chairs arranged around it, and covering the trees around the perimeter were photographs. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, pinned to the bark with nails. The photographs showed people, hikers, men, women, children, all clearly taken without their knowledge. Some were close-ups, zoomed in on faces. Others showed people from behind as they walked trails. Each photo had a date written on it in marker. The dates went back 3 years. I immediately called the sheriff's department and closed that section of the forest. By 5 p.m., we had a search team assembled. Deputies, Forest Service investigators, and 2 K-9 units. I led them to the coordinates Tom had marked on his phone. The camp was worse in person. Those photographs, there were over 400 of them. The investigators counted later. They showed hikers on various trails throughout the park, people who had no idea they were being watched and photographed. Some photos were taken from very close range, which meant whoever did this was skilled at moving silently through the woods. But that wasn't the worst of it. In one of the tents, we found a laptop and external hard drives. The forensics team later discovered over 10,000 additional photographs and hundreds of hours of video footage. Whoever was doing this had been systematically documenting people who used these trails, following them, recording them. We also found detailed maps with hiking routes marked, timestamps noted, and what appeared to be schedules. Patterns of when certain people regularly used the trails. There were names written on some of these maps, which meant this person had somehow learned the identities of their subjects. 3 of the tents contained sleeping bags and personal items, clothes, toiletries, books. It appeared multiple people had been living there, taking shifts maybe, maintaining a constant presence. The most disturbing discovery was a collection of items that clearly didn't belong to whoever built this camp. Car keys with dealer tags still attached, a child's stuffed animal, several phones, all dead, all locked, a woman's jacket with a library card still in the pocket, jewelry, a prescription medication bottle with someone else's name on it. These were trophies, things taken from people, kept as souvenirs. We searched until dark, then resumed the next morning. We never found anyone at the camp, but the evidence suggested it had been actively used within the past 48 hours. There was fresh food in a cooler, warm ash in the fire pit. Damp clothing hung on a line between trees. The sheriff's department started going through the photographs, trying to identify victims. So far, they've matched images to over 60 different people. They're working with state and federal agencies to determine if any of these individuals are connected to missing persons cases. 3 days ago, they got a hit. One of the women in the photographs was reported missing 14 months ago after going hiking alone in a park 30 miles from here. She never came back to her car. The search efforts found nothing. In the photos from the camp, she's clearly distressed in the later images. The dates suggest she was photographed over a period of several days. The last photo of her is dated 2 days before she was reported missing. The investigation is ongoing. They've set up surveillance at the camp in case anyone returns, but so far, nothing. Whoever was doing this knew we found their spot and they vanished. I've had to inform dozens of hikers that they were being watched and photographed without their knowledge. I've had to tell them we don't know who was doing this or why, or if they're still out there somewhere. The park is still open, but attendance has dropped significantly. People are scared, and I don't blame them. I'm scared too. I've been hiking these woods for almost 3 decades, and I always felt safe here. I thought the forest was predictable. The dangers were natural ones. Animals, weather, getting lost. I never imagined there were people out here watching, following, collecting information on innocent families just trying to enjoy nature. Now when I patrol the trails, I look at the tree line differently. I wonder who's watching. I wonder how many other camps like this exist in forests across the country. How many people are being watched right now without knowing it. If you go hiking, especially alone, tell someone where you're going and when you'll be back. Stay on marked trails. Pay attention to your surroundings. If you see anything suspicious, camping equipment far from designated areas, surveillance equipment, anything that feels wrong, report it immediately. The woods aren't as empty as we think they are. Someone is always watching,